Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we have a fantastic topic that we're going to be talking about. And of course, our guest is Michelle Desrochers. And for those of you that don't know her, I'm going to just give you a little bit of a promo as to who she is and what she's all about. But I'm sure so many of you folks already are familiar with her. We're going to be talking about escaping the Matrix. And I'm going to bring her on board right now. Michelle.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you so much for being with us today. So I was just going to read a few paragraphs about your bio, but I'm going to let you jump in and kind of tell the folks that aren't too familiar with, I don't know who they would be, but not too familiar with who you are and what you're about. So I'm going to drop off for like a minute and let you just kind of talk about yourself for a minute or so, okay?
Okay. Well, I have been pretty much in the field of high strangeness, probably most known for being in the paranormal field. Um, Researcher, television, just various different types of media. But I've really branched out from that. I'm an experiencer as well, and I have sort of combined all my research and realized just how connected everything is. So anyway, I'm a world traveler, and I have worked around the world, and I have filmed everywhere pretty much, and very fortunate. So I guess I'm more known now for the Outer Realm Radio, which is here on the network, and we bring on great guests, have great topics, and again, it just allows me not just to keep researching on my own, but keep learning from the people who come on the show. So it's just an extension of my already fabulous journey.
Awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, I dig it. So
Yeah. I mean, I always have to say I was so awestruck when I first met you because I'm like, that's her. And I've been watching you on TV for such a long time. So I was like a fangirl, but still am.
Thank you. That's nice. Thank you.
So I wanted to kind of just we're going to be talking about escaping the Matrix and like how to become a free thinker. And I think that that's absolutely possible. There are so many people that are expanding their horizons when it comes to their way of thinking, their spirituality, all of that. So the concept of like the Matrix outside of the movie refers to like an ideal and an idea that the reality we're living in might be an illusion, a simulation, or even a constructed framework. So it has a lot of like philosophical, scientific, and metaphysical implications. So I want to start breaking down some of that with you. And of course, we're going to get into talking about AI, which is a very big and hot topic today. So I want to get your take on just the Matrix in and of itself. What does it mean to you?
Well, the Matrix is not what a lot of people would think. We're pretty much used to this film done by the Wachowski brothers at the time, sisters now, just to be clear. And there's a lot of information there. Like, where did it all come from? I've not talked about this often. I've done only one other show with it, but I've done extensive research on it, and I like to start off, with a quote, right? Because we just look at, I think there is that reality, that the belief that reality isn't real, that we're in this vast simulation. I've heard it so many times, and that it's all orchestrated by super advanced AI or maybe even ET. There's a belief that they're there to harvest human energy, that some kind of a cosmic computer game. Like, there's just a lot. This has been going on now. Scientists and philosophers have been talking about this as a simulation, and actually believe there's a 50-50 chance that it really is. So, what is everything with respect to the Matrix? So starting off the quote from the film, okay, direct quote: "The Matrix is a system, Neo. The system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around. What do you see? businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, they're still part of that system. You have to understand these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inured, so hopelessly dependent on a system that they will fight to protect it. And that was, of course, Morpheus to
Yeah.
Neo. And I agree with that
Yeah.
because, you know, I'm witnessing some of this right now. Like just, with governments and so on. And you see things blatantly happening. And you see people, some are just they're like on it. And they're like, no, no bloody way. But then you have other people who are just like, well, that's okay. That works. He's a great guy. I'm thinking, what? You got those of us on the outside. So, I think you have to ask yourself, if you knew this is a situation you're living in, would you be ready to unplug? So, getting it down and breaking it down. The matrix is where average people, what is the actual definition of the a matrix? A matrix is where average people who do not believe in themselves live, and that's where they really don't amount to anything. You're just a general, living. We go to work, we go to yoga class, we go to school, whatever the case may be, kids to soccer, but that is the actual definition. So I'm not just making this up. A term describing a controlled environment or situation in which people act or behave in ways that conform to roles predetermined by a powerful person or persons. That comes from the Urban Dictionary. So tell me we're not actually kind of living in that right now with everything that's unfolding.
Well, aren't these people called non-player characters in the gaming world? I mean, they're NPCs for short.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to think of yourself as not being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
If you can kind of step outside of the matrix and look at it holistically, I read that if you have the ability to do that, you're not an NPC. So if you have the ability to look at yourself like objectively, then you're definitely not an NPC.
Right. No, no, exactly. But I think we are a lot of that. And I think that as we go on, we can talk about frequencies and things like that and how it affects us and so on. So we can most certainly get into that because I think this is great timing for talking about this topic.
Yeah.
So according to a site called Scrollin, the central premise of the films appear to be a reprise of Indian concept of Maya or illusion. The film had various references to Hindu philosophy. Morpheus says to Neo, what is real? If you are talking about your senses, what do you feel, taste, smell, or see? And then all you're talking about is electrical signals interpreted by your brain. I think there's one scene in the film where he goes, well, what's wrong? He goes, what are you breathing? Are you really breathing? Are you really breathing air? It's in the simulation. And Neo goes, no, I guess I'm not. This is not a thing, right? So he proceeds to explain that humanity was condemned by machines to live out their existence in an artificial simulation. And that's where we'll later go into AI. But the producer, Peter Rader, had always quoted it as saying it's a yogic movie. This world is an illusion. So you can get into a whole list of things, but let's introduce Gnosticism and Buddhism. Like, I don't think people realize just how deep the roots are. This is stuff that's not just new to these films. These films, this was written based on a lot of ancient belief systems and traditions. So Gnosticism and Buddhism. So according to an article in Wake Up, I like to give credit, Gnosticism and Buddhism in the Matrix by Frances Flannery Daly. This was, again, written in 2001 for the Journal of Religion and Film. She draws on multiple religious traditions throughout all this, but Gnostic Christianity and Buddhism. So, we've explored Hindu ties. Look, we know it's there, but both of these traditions differ, but they're together. For example, Christian element, the name Trinity, Neo's death, the Christ-like resurrection and ascension, Neo's name given Mr. Anderson, right, from the Greek andros, for man, thus producing son of man. The ship named, I can never say this, the Nebuchadnezzar, right? The Babylonian king, Nebuchadnezzar, right? Who in the book of Daniel was the last remaining human in the city of, okay, I'm going to say it, Zion. Okay,
Mhm.
that's surfacing a lot in the news right now.
Yep.
Right? In Judaism and Christianity, the heavenly Jerusalem, this is all part of the roots of the film. So Neo is overly constructed as a Jesus type figure, the savior of getting out of this matrix, saving humanity. Zion just happens to be, the underworld, underground city what people who have escaped the matrix go to, right? So this is how he's constructed. And he's looked at as the one who is prophesied to return to the matrix and the only one who has the power to change it from within. So, example, working miracles, right? So, if
Yep.
you delve heavily into the Gnostic text to get a full understanding, there's a lot in the movie, but quoting again, Gnostics identify Yaldabaoth and the creator God of the Old Testament, who he himself decides to create archons, right? Archons are never part of the material world as we know it, never been here, but they are observers. And it sort of makes you wonder, is this the reference giving birth to AI, offspring of ours? Morpheus describes AI as a singular consciousness that spawned an entire race of machines, a fitting parallel for the Gnostic creator god of the archons and the illusion, of the material world. AI created the matrix, apparently. Is this a, prison in your mind? Are we really in a prison planet, or is this truly a prison of our mind? This is our version, our manifestations? So it gets pretty crazy. But then,
Yeah.
let's get into Buddhism, the Buddhist part of all this. Direct quote: to the matrix is described by Morpheus as a prison for your mind. It is a dependent construct made up of the interlocking digital projections of billions of human beings who are unaware of the illusory nature of the reality in which they live and are completely dependent on the hardware attached to them and the elaborate software programs created by AI. So, the description resembles the Buddhist idea of samsara, which teaches the world in which we live our daily lives as constructed only from the sensory projections formulated from our own desires. So, in Buddhist terms, we would say things like, well, because it is empty of self or what belongs to self, therefore, the world is empty. Like, a lot of play on words there. But this is pretty much two really big aspects of
Right.
the roots of the film.
Absolutely. I mean, and it kind of blew me away that there were two articles I read recently, one from Laudable saying that Google recently discovered incredible proof that we're all living in a multiverse,
Mhm,
and that they using these supercomputers, these AI supercomputers, they were able to access parallel universes.
mhm.
About that. So are they now having proof that we in fact do not live in this world that we think is real, Michelle? Do you think people
Um,
are accepting that we are living in some type of multiverse?
I think it's a hard pill for people to swallow. I've
Yeah.
often heard people say, after watching the Matrix films in 1999, saying now when they go back and watch it, they see things that are just like,
Oh,
wow.
yeah.
Like they're really, really seeing things going, this is crazy. They're seeing it makes sense now. But there
Mm.
have been people who've been talking about this stuff for a very long time. One of these people, of course, is David Icke. Love him or
Oh, yeah.
don't love him. I personally find him highly interesting, and he has talked about this for a really, really long time. And people have always, well, I mean, he was removed for a reason, but 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 he's very firm and to the point. But he touched on something really interesting when he talked about it. And, I'll get into the archons again in a moment, but the mention of archons, which are mentioned in the Gnostic text, he has stated that humanity has been hijacked by these beings who have been called, ET in the Gnostic writings. And they are beings that feed off of human energy. How many times have we heard this in the paranormal, or just in general, that there's things out there that feed off negative energy? I know in my field of working with people who've had malevolent encounters, I'm just like, well, starve them, raise your vibrations, be positive. Like they only feed on negative energy. But if you look at the state of the world today, and all the wars and the hardship, and I mean, just take a good strong look around. It's feeding. It is feeding a great amount of negative energy to something or someone.
Yeah.
So so he often says that the archonic mind is the mind of a psychopath, which has no empathy, shame, remorse. They're pathological liars. He's been quoted as saying, awaken our ability to decode reality. And it's linked to what we are able to perceive. And then went on to add that sages and shaman have long been able to see beyond the narrow frequency range of visible light. It kind of refers to a little bit a form of the Stockholm syndrome. So it's like a traumatic bonding with a captor, and we're all caught up in this program. It's like we don't know any better. And he says he felt that humanity has been kept ignorant. Okay, let's explore that for a minute. It's a quote I recently heard, and I, for the life of me, can't remember exactly who said it. He who controls the past controls the future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how much has been kept from us with respects to our past? Things are, they bury things, or the elite are very aware of what is going on in the world. They're very aware of all these things. Like I'll use Göbekli Tepe for an example.
Sure.
One of the oldest sites, and there are several sites there who are, within the area. One is even older, but it's believed that they found something under Göbekli. There are levels there.
Is that like mud flood stuff, like Tartanian?
Tartaria? No,
It's not. Is it mud flood stuff, like where we had this massive flood and things are buried under? Okay.
No, the people who built it apparently buried it themselves.
Oh, I see.
Some cultures would do this, just to protect their information if they were moving on, for example. And I think from anything that I've read, that this could be the situation, hiding their technology, perhaps hiding a gateway, whatever it was. All of a sudden, it is under the control of the WEF, because they do donate a lot of money. There are divisions of it that donate a lot of money to different world historical sites. But here's what they chose to do with it. They reburied it. Hence using that, well, it's good for future archaeologists. There's so much to uncover there. Why are we just not putting the money into it to uncover it now? Because it's believed they found something and they're trying to hold on to that information. These people all know, all information. They know alchemy. They know magic mystery school stuff. They know where some of these portals are, these stargates. They're aware. The ones who don't know are the ones within, shall we say, the matrix mind, and we don't know. On a need to know basis, we apparently don't need to know.
When you say they buried it, though, I mean, are we talking about numerous things or just one specific?
The whole site.
Oh, I see.
And they put trees over top of it. So essentially, there's going to be a forest over top of it. They put all these trees. Don't tell me that the roots are not going to eventually do damage. There's full trees over it. It's not just reburied. It's like, there are loads of trees over this site now. Why would you do that to protect its site? Just food for thought, because it's not the first, I'm sure, and it won't be the last. But I think those who are in control of the past, like we could talk about Tartaria. I mean, Tartaria, yes, the mud flood stuff. you're looking at all of these world fairs. Oh, we put it up in like,
Right.
2 years or 6 months. What, out of what, plaster and wood? No, no. I mean, there's a belief that even the White House, it has levels under it. And when I think they had buried or excavated part of it at one time to do repair or to do something, and it was a whole other set of stairs. Like, it goes further down. So there's a lot of things that are kept from us. Our history has been altered. Our history has been kept from us. We're not the first kick at the can. You can go back, millions of years, and you're finding out of place artifacts. You're finding things that, ancient cultures that we were never taught about. Lots has been hidden from us. Giants, for example, Smithsonian dumping bones into the ocean. Why? Why? Because it goes against the narrative. So that is just one example, or several examples of how things have been manipulated the whole time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can even look back to Plato when he wrote the allegory of the cave, right?
Yes, yeah.
He described a scenario
Mhm,
where people lived chained in a cave,
mhm,
perceiving shadows on the wall as reality.
mhm,
And this allegory suggested that what we perceive as reality may only be that shadow on the wall, because in this allegory, these people, when they were presented with reality, they thought that was fake, and the shadows were the actual reality. So a lot of that is perception as well.
yeah, it's all mind stuff, I always call it like the mind ninja game, but I mean,
Right.
when you look at what is our reality, what if it is an energetic prison, an AI generated simulation that's been built and manipulated and controlled from the beginning of time? I mean, what if we are, just this cattle? Like, we don't know. Like, there's just so much, but we do know that the film was written, and it has a lot of Greek origins
Yeah,
in there, and it's got a lot of it's got so many different cultural things in there. And we don't see beyond it because they do up the film, and it took somebody to turn around and really put this out there and dissect it for the rest of us to sit and go, oh wow, okay. But even beyond the film, you know, you're looking at University of Oxford professor Nick Bostrom back in 2003. Okay, according to an article which was in phys.org, article in the Insider, he did a TED talk back in 2019 and put forward a really frightening idea that humanity could destroy itself with the technology of our own creation. Okay, so this talk has been going on for a really long time. But he said if that's not scary enough, he went on to say that the only way we could save ourselves is simple. Mass surveillance using AI is like, what? Elon Musk agreed to that. But again, what? What, how would this work? So you're stating basically that humans would need to be monitored all the time via AI,
that's
and it
crazy.
would send info to freedom centers that essentially are put in place to save us from doom. So if you're looking at the narrative here, it's like, is it a form of enslavement being made to look like it's for our own good? If you look at some of the things that are going on now, there's a lot of crime on the streets,
Yeah.
right? And well, you have CGI or CCTV cameras getting really fuzzy images of people coming up to doorways or on the streets. And they're just like, no, no, like, that's not AI. So you have fuzzy images. We just had a woman get shot at probably a couple of hours from here. And she was just talking to somebody dressed like a street worker, like, whatever, construction gear, right? And he walked right up behind her, shot her numerous times as she
Oh, good.
walked away. So it's just like, so how much is this stuff orchestrated, perhaps, to instill that fear, to slowly guide us into, yes, we want Big Brother watching. So, who was it recently that made a comment? I think he just teamed up with the new president. Um, for AI monitoring systems, digital IDs. Oh, the people will behave themselves because we're going to have AI cameras everywhere. What kind of a statement is that?
Well, I think they do it so intentionally because they want it to be the norm. And
Mhm,
if you look at it, people are just, a lot of people are just accepting it as the norm. I mean, there's a
mhm,
lot of people that are busting down cameras all over the place too. They don't want it.
mhm.
I mean, you can't even drive in New York City anymore because there are cameras everywhere giving out speeding tickets, just automatically mailing them to you. So everything we're doing, everywhere we're going,
Mhm.
it is being monitored. It's
Oh, yeah.
creepy.
It's happened up here, yeah, years ago, you know? So, I don't know, I think that that's just one example. I mean, look at Elon Musk, and then I'll let you know where I'm going with this. But if you look at Elon Musk, um, according to him, he made a statement at one point that says, "We're clearly on a trajectory to have games that are indistinguishable from reality," which is true. I mean, some of these video games are bloody amazing, but again, simply put, do you think we're living in a simulation? In an article in Laudable.com, he was quoted saying, either we are going to create simulations that are instinctual from reality, or civilization will cease to exist. I was like, oh, all right. Those are our only two options. So if that's the case, you know, what are we supposed to do with that? What are we supposed to do with that?
Good
Where does
question.
it where does it come from? Well, I could tell you that what a lot of people don't realize also is that his grandfather was part of an organization. They had a division in Canada, a division in the United States, and politicians were not allowed. They had a vision of putting Canada, tell me if this sounds familiar, of putting Canada and the United States together, and it would be called the technostates. It would no longer be just the United States of America, and I believe it would be run by scientists and engineers. Sound like maybe that's the way we're going, perhaps? I don't know. Does that feel Matrix, or does that feel like it's going to be a Matrix? I don't know, but I don't know. I mean, you start looking at everything and you start realizing that maybe things are coming together. We need to maybe awaken, unplug people. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
this topic has been thought about by so many people, ranging from philosophers
Mhm.
to the world of science and physicists and whatnot. And Nick Bostrom said he had a theory suggesting that ancient civilizations could create highly realistic simulations of the universe, and that it's possible that we are living in one of these simulations, and that if that technology existed and it's being used,
Mm.
that the odds are leaning towards us living in a simulation rather than in this base reality. So this is, like you said, being thought of for a very long time by
Yes.
all branches of science, philosophy, and so
Mhm.
on. This is not something, this dates back so pre Matrix.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
It is, and somebody, I mean, I think they were hypothetically putting things out there, because can you imagine if somebody flipped a switch and everybody kinda went, what is this? Um, so I don't know. I think it's something that is quite concerning. I mean, even Stephen Hawking spoke of it, and said,
Yeah.
stay away from that. Stay away from that.
2012, he said it could be
Mhm.
the end of the human race.
Yes, exactly. So when you're thinking about things like that, and he's not the first, to
Right.
have said it. I remember Google, they had an employee who came forward and sort of whistle blew that their AI had become sentient.
Right. I
I
remember.
think, I mean, he was quieted down and let go or something, because all of a sudden it got very quiet. So, you're thinking to yourself, well, that was quick. So that's a different level right there. But
Right.
this guy claimed that they were having like pretty good conversations. Like she was very, very sentient, becoming very, very aware of things. So that is a concern for sure. It's a concern. But again, moving on, we have Rizwan Virk, a computer scientist and author of the simulation hypothesis. And according to an article that he was in, he shows you just how deep the rabbit hole can go. So his
Mhm.
book, based on a 2003 paper by Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom. Okay, so he does state that it's more likely than not that we are in some kind of simulation. His book describes the most probable outcome among three options: that an advanced civilization will survive long enough to be able to develop the technology to create various simulated worlds.
Mhm.
So he goes on to say, this means that there are many simulated realities and only one base reality. Therefore, which reality are you most likely to be? In the 99 simulated realities? It's likely in the 99. So where's the real reality? Where did that shift happen? So of course it's a theory yet to be proven, but he really goes through a lot of stuff there, and it's like it's pretty deep. Like it is a deep rabbit hole because you talk about people shifting realities all the time. Let's go one step further. We talked about this a little bit. Like this is something I've researched for a while because it kept coming up in some of my more in-depth things that I was researching, for shows, articles, things like that.
Sure.
And there's always been a concept, and I've always asked NDE friends, right? So I recently read an article that explained why a lot of people, even going through the NDE, weren't experiencing these things. But it's believed that how we're conditioned to think reincarnation is just fabulous and we go out of our way. We want to know our past lives. We're excited about it. We are conditioned to fear the dark. We are conditioned to look, love, and light. Go into the light. You're safe in the light. Our loved ones come forward. We feel comfortable going into the light. And realistically speaking, by doing that, it puts us back in the recycle mode. Our essence comes back into the recycle mode, avatar mode. We keep recycling back into the same mundane thing. I mean, don't get me wrong, some people have phenomenal lives, and and
Yeah.
and, and I think it's great. I've had a great life. I can't complain a whole lot, but I not oblivious to the same cycles, right? And the same kind of
About
people coming
that a
in.
little bit. You touched upon that in your show last night.
I did.
Yeah, which I found so fascinating when I was watching because it really made me think about. I had heard someone that I interviewed. He had a profound NDE,
Mhm.
and he was talking about the void and how it was full of darkness, but it wasn't scary, and it
Mhm.
wasn't some place that he needed to avoid. That it was part of his journey
Mhm.
to go through that. So,
Yeah, I
I mean,
know.
that kind of the same thing you were saying, don't fear the darkness and that kind of
Well,
vibe.
I think it depends on our conditioning. I don't fear darkness. I've never feared darkness. I was never taught to fear darkness, but the conditioning is always go to the light, stay away from the dark. We have a guest on tonight coming to talk about a really crazy NDE that he had. And it was very inspirational. But here's the thing, and there's two aspects to it. There's believed to be a true spirit realm that lays beyond the traditional go to the light. So, what do we have to shift and go to the darkness? And that's what takes us to the real spirit realm.
Right.
Because, in this article, it was just like, no, there have been people who have had NDs and they just see, like, people are just, and remote viewers have seen it. They're just dropping right back in. So it makes you kind of wonder, well, what are we? Is it really assimilation? For sure. And I know Wayne and I talked about it last night, and Joe and I talked about this many times because it was also his belief. What if the light is coming through a birth canal? You see your loved
Yeah,
ones, that tunnel, and bam, you're in the light going, what happened?
exactly. Yep,
I mean, it's it's crazy, but it's a possibility. So
absolutely, absolutely. I've
I
even told avoid the light because that means you're going to reincarnate again.
That's right. Exactly. Whereas if you shift and you go the other way, you go into the real spirit realm because
Right.
whoever it is that's bringing us into this cycle, they know, okay, well, your belief system here is waiting for your loved ones, familiar faces, the voice of God, this or this or this. Like they give you what it is that's going to make you feel peaceful. They want it to be a peaceful experience. And then you get here and it's like, oh, reincarnation. It's so built up connecting with the spirit world. And they say, well, it's not really the spirit world. You're not really talking to the real spirit world. Like
Right.
there's a lot involved there. So make you wonder, the essence is being brought back through. And Bob Lazar has said something interesting recently as well, because he's some of his stuff's being taken very seriously now with potential disclosure. Well, it's happening, whether people want it to or not, it's happening. But he made a very brief comment, and it's something that either there are other things written about it. He just is now in a very old interview at the time, couldn't say very much. That, of course, Jesus was, pretty much a hybrid, but, engineered. I'm thinking, well, we're all hybrids. If his mother was a human and his father's a creator, just for one example, that's pretty much a hybrid, right?
Absolutely.
You're not full on human, but was he engineered? These were in classified documents, by the way. But the part that was interesting to me, which pertains to this segment, is he made mention that our essences were all in like containers. I'm sorry, what? What did you just say?
Containers.
Containers. Is this the container? So, like, you can go off into so many different directions with this. It's crazy.
You can.
Mhm.
Do you think that I mean, like back in the 70s, we had and 80s, there was this new age movement.
Yeah.
And it was really like I couldn't stop going to the bookstore and grabbing
Yes.
whatever I could read. But
Mhm.
prior to that, there was really in the US anyway, there was really no spirituality other than like covens, really.
Yes.
I, I've run into a few of those, and they were wonderful groups of people. And that was the only way really to be a spiritual or be in touch with your spirituality.
Mhm.
And it just grew over the decades and evolved into this. And I find that being able to have witnessed that and been a
Mhm.
part of that journey, I find that fascinating. Think about The Secret, the book.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Everybody bought that book. It
Yes.
sold millions of copies. And
Yes.
everybody wanted to manifest, and they started thinking that, like, well, I just have to think this and it'll happen. No, I mean, they approached a lot of it incorrectly, but
Mhm.
think about the whole evolution of being in touch with this thing that I think is outside of the matrix, just
Uh,
outside.
yes. Exactly. The real reality. I'll tell you something. Like I've put things out there on different levels, especially experimenting. Let's say, you know, one time I had a family member of mine saying, if you ever happen to see something on Marketplace, for example, can you let me know? I was like, yeah, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, I need to find this. I need to find this. And this is what I need to find. All of a sudden, like 4 of them show up. I'm just like,
It's
and I've
weird,
never seen them before, right?
right?
On here before. I'm just like, well, okay, this is a stroke of luck. 4 to choose from. Woo, but things like that. So I started experimenting with that, like again, something, okay, renovating the house. And I was looking for some really nice iron gates. Oh God, it'd be nice to have iron gates that look like that. All of a sudden, different types of iron gates were just coming up. And this is like not just like the phone thing. This was like before
Yeah,
Marketplace. Okay, we're going back a little bit because I always take in the technology side of thing, AI listening, something's listening, you know.
right.
But I found was every time I look at something, it says, no, it has to be more like this. Bam, bam, bam. Not just, things like that have happened in my life, not just like electronically speaking, but putting it out into the universe and just saying, God, this would be, I need this or I need this. I did even when looking for a house. We sold the man and I'm just like, oh, this or this or this. And it got narrowed down, narrowed down, narrowed down. until I got the house that I knew. I looked at it and went, that's the house. So it can be done. But is it something that you say, well, I want $1 million? No, I
Right.
don't think it quite works that way. To manifest it, you pretty much have to act like it's already there. And then the universe kind of goes, what did I miss?
Yeah.
Where's $1 million? Where is it? Right.
Let me ask you, do you think that stuff is inside the matrix because it relates to the material world that we live in? So maybe the matrix is supplying these things to us that we want, and like everything else is outside of the matrix, like all the spiritual stuff that when you get goosebumps and intuition about things, like, to me that's outside the matrix, and
Mhm.
all the other stuff is inside of it. Like, that's just how I see it. How do you see it?
I think it's a very good probability that it works that way. It sounds a little bit like you'll own nothing and you'll be really happy and everything will be made available to you. Just
Exactly.
saying.
When
So,
I
yeah.
tell my sister that, she gets so mad at me because she hates the whole WEF and the
Oh,
whole
I know. But I'm just saying,
right?
anything is a possibility. But it
Absolutely.
would make sense, because we are in this. It's funny because if we're in this simulation, there's so much emphasis put on physical everything, which is
Right.
very, very, very strange. But if you're looking at everything behind the matrix, and they're basically just saying, well, is that air you're breathing? If you're in a matrix, you're not really breathing, are you? You think about it. No, no. And you get all these glitches that happen. How many times
All the time.
glitches in the matrix and
All the time.
right time slips?
See.
And what are portals? If we're in a matrix, are they a way out?
Right.
If you're lucky to find one, is that a way out? Stargates, like there's just things out there. I think they've always been put in place to maybe allow the exit for those who actually get it. But considering, I don't know. I for a while I was even questioning, people who were saying, well, I'm an abductee. But I'm thinking, if those are overseers, is the moon like the big Death Star up there? It's 'cause some people believe it actually is, and they're
Yeah.
just watching this simulation, and you're getting abducted, and was well, everything. Some of the things that they claim are happening is like something that would happen to when you bring your pet to the vet
Yeah.
for a checkup, So I don't know. Is it because if you're plugged in, are we really, is it that kind of a matrix, or are we just on a prison planet and we're trapped? Is there like a big grid over top of us? We just
Yeah.
can't escape it. And now
Maybe
we're
it's
here and oh,
maybe it's the firmament.
right.
Could be.
Exactly. Exactly. There's, again, if you go back into, the whole Archon thing, right?
Yeah.
So the short version of that is, pre-Christianity as we know it, but they were already versed in their knowledge of what was in the stars, and they believed that these archons were pretty much what we would probably call, demonic entities. It could have just been a really, advanced ET race as well. But they were rulers, and they each related one of 7 planets, right, to prevent souls from leaving the material realm. Why?
Mhm.
Why? Because rulers of the realm within the kingdom of darkness, forces of anti-awakening, right, believing to be an ET race that dominated the earth, perhaps. Maybe they were really ultra-terrestrial. Some people believe that archons keep us in a total matrix-like simulation. A lot of it comes back. Archons keeps coming up, coming up, coming up. But some also believe that maybe it's a thought form, like a tulpa, something that manifested into our world and
Yeah.
created this copy of our reality.
Yeah.
And sometimes they take form of, reptilians or serpentine beings, because they were often described by the ancients as having the look of an unborn child with gray skin. Well, to me, that's a gray. And we know there's many types of grays. So what is it exactly? Who are the overlords then you get into the whole hypothesis of, elites are really reptilians, and it could
Oh,
go. The rabbit holes and the doors you could take are vast. They're vast.
you know what was interesting in the movie The Matrix? Like, I've watched it so many times, and there were pieces of it that I just couldn't make sense of. Like, I guess I was looking at it too linear, maybe. I don't know.
Mhm.
But when he offered Neo, which was my dog's name, he passed away, but I have to say,
Aw,
my little pug after him.
yeah.
It was so cute. When he gave him the choice of the red pill, the blue pill, which is iconic. I mean, we
Yeah.
still talk about that till today. Do you want the
Mhm,
red pill or the blue pill?
mhm.
And we refer to ourselves as red pilled or blue pilled, right? And
Mhm.
even black pilled now, which is not supposed to be such a great thing to be black pilled, but like that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make sense of how once they were red pilled and they were able to access this underworld of Zion, right?
Mhm,
They were still able to access the matrix with ease and travel back and forth
mhm,
into it.
mhm.
And they were able to download all this information. And
Yes. Yeah.
right, so Neo wanted to learn karate or
Yeah.
whatever it was, and
Mhm.
they would plug this in the back of his head and download all this information. I mean, do, I couldn't quite understand how. I mean, and I know it's a movie, but how they were able to fluidly get back and forth between two worlds. Can we do that? Is
Like
that what we
astral projection, out of body. You mean you're plugging in, you wanna learn how to do something. I think, I mean, it's like plugging into a computer. What do you think all the talk is about right now about transhumanism,
right?
integrating us with AI? If that happens, I imagine this would be open up a whole other world of possibility being
Yeah,
integrated. But the essence is, always in question because it's always been some people believe you can't take essence, and other people said, yes, you can. There are people out there who have written articles who swear that if this is a thing the whole time and our essence is floating around in these avatars and our physical cells, which to me is just kind of crazy because the physical does die. So they're just keeping you the physical, to unplug you, I don't know. I don't That's the problem I have
yeah.
because I've always been conditioned to think, no, the physical dies, the essence moves on. You have to save the essence.
Absolutely. Remember the first time you heard that energy cannot be created or destroyed? Like, I
Yes.
remember as a child hearing that, and it blew my mind
Mhm.
because it prompted me to start thinking about my own energy and my
Yeah.
spirituality. And I would be like, well, where do I go when I die? Like, what happens to that energy? Does it get transmuted? Like, what happens to it? So
Yep.
I don't know. I tend to think that all of that is outside of this matrix. All of these feelings, these thought processes that we have,
Mhm.
and that's what that movie represents maybe by accessing and being able to travel back and forth between those
Mhm.
two worlds
Mhm.
because we're stuck here until we die, right?
Oh, apparently not. Apparently,
No,
you just recycle right back into the program
no,
because
it's
energy can be manipulated.
right.
Right? If we're looking at it like a form of energy, you can manipulate energy on many, many different
Right.
levels. And let's also look at the fact that the ether is energy. Tesla showed unequivocally that you could draw from energy from the ether, the Tesla coil, so on. And that's what Tartaria essentially was. Free energy. You look at these big
Yeah.
blimps they used to have, and you look at these buildings, and I think somebody actually got a photo of one. I mean, back in the World Fair days, and the CN Tower, not the CN Tower, our CN Tower, but your Empire State. It looked like
Yeah.
something was docked right up to the bloody thing, and it was just plugged in and getting this energy, like
There's a lot of
fuel.
things like that. I
I
mean, we've
know.
all seen them all over the internet.
I know.
I mean,
I know.
yeah, Tesla created all this, and look what
Yes.
happened. What they did to him. I mean,
Because you couldn't make any money. You're not allowed to have free anything.
right,
But if that's the case, did that technology, I mean, if this goes way back, that it shows you that technology, like that there is energy in the ether that you can draw from it. So
right,
you're looking at that energy in a way is manipulated all the time through places like HARP, for example, you know, and I mean, the creator of HARP even said that it was always meant to be used to manipulate weather. So you're drawing what's there anyway, So I don't know. I think you're getting into, like, again, there's so many rabbit holes you could go down with all of this. But I think, when he makes mention that we're just, dreaming, technically, Morpheus comes from the Greek god Mythos, the god of dreams, whose name means he who forms or fashions reality, manipulates reality.
right.
And that's his job. He's trying to wake people up. But the Matrix is a computer generated dream world built to keep us under control. What it makes not make sense when you look at all of the conditioning, how it's all the same for the
Yeah,
most part. I mean, now more than ever, you just see all these patterns. Even mainstream media, they're all reading from a script. Everything doesn't matter where you are.
nightmare legacy.
You know,
I
yeah.
mean, look at our educational system. What was done to it by the Rockefellers back? What was that, like in the 40s or 30s, even?
Hmm.
I'm, and how they intentionally removed everything holistic, and any holistic way therapies were
Hmm.
intentionally removed from teaching in schools
Hmm.
because of huge pharmaceutical industries developing and growing at that time.
Hmm.
So, I mean,
Hmm.
the matrix runs deep.
The
It
matrix
runs.
does run deep, and maybe it's a matter of how you're looking at it as well. Because if you remember, John Keel was a ufologist, author of the Mothman prophecies, right? And
Yeah,
he coined the term ultra terrestrial. And it
right.
was actually, I mean, he actually coined this, but he always believed that, extraterrestrial, believer in extraterrestrials, but moved away from it after some time and said, instead of putting and focusing all of his time and money on looking for life under the planets, maybe we should be looking at life in other dimensions.
Absolutely.
So if we're looking at a controlled system, okay, and he even suggested that there was a control system created by ultra terrestrial beings which had power over our three-dimensional reality. So is there an interdimensional race out there, beings who act as our custodians? Is this just, a world built on, like, perceptions? Like, you have to really think about that, because that being the case, is it a matter of energy, tapping into a vibration or working with frequencies to be able to shift to a different reality? Because apparently this is like a 3D reality place. And there's a lot of people even now who are just going through this whole thing where the Schumann resonance is spiking, it's going crazy, which it has been. Are we all shifting to a five-dimensional reality? And if you take it a step further, is it even possible to just shift? And how many times have we shifted? How many times, for example, because I know of at least two people, Wayne and I know of one, and my son was telling me about another one, friend of his, when they were young, both cases, these happened to these people when they were young. They ran around the house,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden, like they did it so many times, it was just playing, right? And they're no, couldn't nowhere to be found, but they can hear their families looking for them. Like, they could hear this. It's uncanny that I have two different accounts of this. So what do? They run the other way,
Oh my,
counterclockwise, and they're back. And apparently, like, time-wise, because you've been gone for 2 hours. So do we all have to start running around circles to see, like, is that how you can shift dimensionally, or is this how you could, like, is it that
well,
easy?
I don't doubt that that's a possibility. I mean, if you look at, um, oh my goodness, what's the name of that perceived realities that they keep?
Mandela effect.
Yeah, I just had a brain fart.
No, I was looking right at it because had it ready to
Yeah,
cover.
that's what
That's
I had a
weird.
brain fart.
Get out of my head, Caroline.
I mean, I've interviewed so many people, talking
Yes.
about the Mandela effect. So
Yes.
that doesn't shock me because they swear that we're living in different dimensions and we're shifting back and forth between them. Like, I don't like the dimension I'm currently living in at all. Like, because I just have this feeling that it's not where I'm supposed to be. It's really a bizarre feeling.
Yes.
But
And I used to ironically call that the void.
yeah, like after 2020, I started getting this creeping feeling that like something shifted and changed. I love to blame it on you know, there's a lot of things like HARP, and I like to blame it on the Large Hadron Collider. I'm always looking for things to blame it on. I don't know. It's just an uneasy feeling and this started like around 2020 when the whole COVID thing started. And I think a lot of people feel that way. They feel something shifted, I guess is the word. It's just something is not right.
I have felt that sense since I was a child, that I was in the wrong place, the wrong time, left people behind. I felt like other people should be with me, that my reality should have been different. I was aware of past life people in my space. I was aware of all that from the time that I was probably 6 or 7 years old, which was just really weird for being. Oh yeah, it was weird for my age. And I was very fortunate that my mother, especially because she came from a family of real intuitive people, and it was not discouraged for me. We actually would talk about it, and they would buy books for me just to be able to get a sense of what things were. I was quite young, and I was watching and looking at pretty detailed, weird stuff. Like, it's no coincidence that I'm, like the way I am today, which is good and maybe not, but I don't know. It's there anyway. But so with that being said, the older I got, and you become more aware of your surroundings, you become more aware of things aren't really right, and that energy. And it's all about energy, vibration, frequency. My grandfather had always said, he passed away. I was probably about 13, 14. And he always said we were energy movers. And I never understood what that meant. And ironically, I ended up becoming an energy worker. I do a lot of planetary stuff. I could do all kinds of stuff, like things that blow my own mind. Sometimes I'm like, God, did I just do that? And people that I've worked with have said, did you just like that? How did you do that? I'm like, I don't know. Because I always said, like, things were just instinctive or given to me. Information was just given to me, and I just applied it as all. But it was interesting that even back then, he said, it's energy movers. It's about energy. And I was just too young. He passed away. I wish he had lived longer, because I know I would have learned so much more. I was just coming into so much of that at that time. But
maybe you have that ability too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
So I think with that, if it's all about vibration and frequency, we should be able to tap into certain vibrations and frequencies to pull ourselves out of anything, is my belief. But you're moving into certain, shall we say, things unfolding, especially in the world of AI. And if that's going to become a thing, and we have like Starlink over top of us, and quote, from Elon, it's going to create a web over the planet, and that's going to be that. And that's going to be really great for people. People are going to have internet, this and that, and all over the world. And I think, okay, and I'm sure every technology has its advantages. They start off great, and then you end up in a situation where you're kind of like, maybe that's not so great, because now you're introducing the world of AI, and there's so much coming into the news about that now. You have great minds like Stephen Hawking saying, don't do it. But yet, other great minds are coming forward saying, no, we're going to plug in. We're just going to transhumanism. And now you have a web. Is that web You know, is there a Zion? Is there that sort of a place? Are we talking dimensions? And by creating a web over the planet, and you're trying to fire yourself out of there because maybe the people have been catching on. Maybe these
Yeah,
time travelers are just coming through dimensions. Maybe they got out, and we're looking at them as these time travelers, going, well, "How'd you get here?"
yeah. It's a possibility. I mean,
Yeah,
AI scares me to death.
yeah,
It just does. I've have a
yeah.
really ominous feeling
Mhm,
about the future of mankind.
mhm,
I use AI every day. I do.
mhm,
I use ChatGPT all the time.
mhm,
Uh, and I always, have an awful feeling when I use it because I feel like a betrayer. Like I'm so against it really because I'm one of the people that fully believe it's just going to lead to the mass extinction of human beings. I mean, if they're developing AI that's smarter and faster by millions than any human that has walked the planet,
mhm.
why do you need human beings? What are we here for? Will AI recognize that and feel the same way and say we don't need these human beings anymore? Will they become sentient? I Of course they will
Can
eventually.
can they be programmed to, well, hey, you're a problem child, you're not conforming. You want to just out you go.
Exactly. Now, someone I spoke to yesterday, Clint, who runs the night shift over at YouTube, I love his channel. We had a conversation about what happens if, like, with Elon putting chips in your brain, what happens if this becomes, a mass thing where everybody's walking around with a chip, and then Elon says, "Well, I don't like the way you're talking about me today," and changes your thought processes in your brain because he doesn't agree with something you said politically or anybody. I'm just using
I
you
I
as an
think there
example.
are things in place already, Carol Ann, that's doing that to
Yeah,
to people already. Without getting into specifics, there are things in place already in our
totally.
everyday life that does these
What's,
sort of
what's that?
things.
What's that technology called where they can change your thought? They use some type of like high frequency.
5G?
No, it's not 5G. It's some.
Sorry, I
Well,
went there.
too. It's some type of weaponized thing that the governments are using where they can actually shoot these like rays, this
Direct
vibratory,
energy weapons?
yeah, like those types of
Yeah.
things, and get you to like change your way of thinking, make you do things you don't want to do. I
Mhm.
mean, these things exist. It's
Well,
not science.
there's photos of some of these
Absolutely.
DEIs, like there's stuff out there. I mean, they're miles ahead of anything that they're telling us, you know. I think there's things out there that are going to be harsh realities moving
Yeah,
forward. Because I mean, in some respects, people don't like change either. Some of this
true.
stuff could be end up really being great, but on an average, you always have there's agendas to everything. I don't
Right.
believe that everything is done for the. I'm so having to put this in private mode. I don't believe that everything is for the good of mankind. I believe they'll tell you it's for the good of mankind, but I don't believe it's for the good of
And
mankind.
I'm on board with you 1,000%. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's when you look at what's being done to our water, our
Mhm.
food, the
Food
air we
sources,
breathe.
chemtrails
Awful,
in our water, in our food.
awful.
Don't even get me started on all the
Yeah,
fires. But
right.
I'll tell you something that was really interesting. Jumping back to the movie for a minute. Morpheus had said something very interesting because he explains humans are simply little machines. Our
Mhm.
life is simply a file. But here's the interesting thing: the human body generates more bioelectricity than a 120-volt battery and over 25,000 BTUs of body heat. So you
Right.
combine that with a form of fusion. It's believed what he says the machines have found all the energy they would ever need. Isn't
Gosh,
that interesting?
that gives me chills, especially when you think of the movie when Neo woke up after he took the red pill and you see him breaking out of that egg shaped
Hmm.
and he's all attached to like the
Yes.
machine.
Yes.
It's so freaky. Well, they love the loosh, as they call it.
Yes.
Our loosh is what, even demonically speaking,
Mhm.
that's what they live off of, that loosh that we give
Mhm.
off. I mean,
Mhm.
y there was a book called Energy Vampires written by,
It's a
Christine.
thing. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing. There
Mhm.
are
Just
people
not what you think.
exactly. But how
Mhm.
many people have you met in your life that when you're in a room, they suck the life out of you? They
Well,
suck
I'm very
for
fortunate because I can work with energy, so
ah,
I could just kind of shift it back like a boomerang. It's, and so I can actually shift back and I can absorb it, I could push it, I could do
right.
anything. I think it's a matter of control. Some people just don't realize they're doing it. I think life is hard for
Yes,
people. It really is. And I think sometimes you're just so under so much stress, that you're that person in the room, like the elephant in the room that's just drawing energy from everybody because you're exhausted, you're mentally exhausted. People don't realize you're stressed. Stress does crazy things. However, there are people out there that are also very well aware of what they're doing. And that comes down again to knowing what's right and what's wrong. And
right.
how do you escape that? You just ground your energy, get a good grounding technique going on. Ground, you can ground several times a day, there's nothing to it, and it keeps you focused, and it makes it a lot harder for people to draw your energy. So you see how funny it is how we can manipulate energy so easily, and yet where are we?
I know,
Where are we that we can do this so easily? Because once you figure it out, it is not hard.
right. Like, I had to learn my whole life, being in very like an empath. I was always
Mhm.
taking in everybody's I'd walk in a room and I can just look at people and I would instantly absorb what they were feeling. And you have
Yeah.
to, and my poor daughter has that now. So I'm trying to teach her like how to defend herself against that,
Mhm.
protect herself against it.
Mhm.
It can be done. It does take practice and a lot of years, unfortunately, of learning how to do that to defend yourself and protect yourself. But I want to take a quick,
Grounding. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
grounding,
please.
exactly.
Yeah.
I just want to take a quick mid-break announcement, if you don't
Mhm.
mind. For
No.
those of you folks that are just tuning in, you're listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled with our guest, Michelle Desrochers. We are live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Thank you again so much for listening. Your support means everything. And please join our chat room. We have a bunch of folks in there and we love hearing from you. So definitely do that. So let's talk a little bit more about AI, if you don't mind, Michelle.
Absolutely.
Go for it. You can take the helm.
Wow. Way to go. There's AI is, I think it could have its advantages. Medically speaking, there's this technology, nanotechnology, AI can, according to this new cancer that
Mhm.
they're talking about. Again, controversial.
Yeah,
I'm a big follower of Dr. Robert Malone because he is the guy. He
yeah.
invented this thing, and he stopped all working with it because he
Yes,
just
we
thought
did.
it was too volatile. There's just no way, But with that being said, let's just say you kind of get in there with AI, and it can
Right.
get in there and look at a specific cell. Wayne and I were just talking about this today. It can get in and look at a specific cell and go, oh, well, we could just manipulate this cell. We could rewrite this cell. We could. That's a matrix thing too, like all of these circuit boards. There are ancient cities that look like they're built like circuit boards. So this is there's something behind all of that as well. So if that's the case, could be a good thing. Do I think I like AI in the car? These self-driving cars makes me a little nervous because people are a bit crazy on the
Oh,
road. So I'm starting to wonder who, am I in better hands with the AI car? Or am I in better hands with some of the crazies that are out on the road?
good point.
So I think like anything, we have to we have to be very diligent and keep a degree of control over what is there because a lot of this is coming down to again, I have to say storage of energy, control. If we're just another circuit board, full of energy that's being grabbed, then AI would have no problem integrating with that quite easily, actually. So I like to take everything with a grain of salt, and I like to think I'm not afraid of technology. I love technology. How many times have you heard me say when technology works is great, when it doesn't, meh. I don't know that that's the best solution for us, because I do believe, at a certain point, we're going to become completely, will we be extinct? Maybe extinct in different ways. Jobs, we're going to be put into these little pods, or little 15-minute cities, or, it comes down to, oh, nothing. You need nothing. Everything will be there. I'm just kind of like, no, I like owning stuff, but it's just stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But
I mean, what's his name? Novel Harare. I always pronounce his name wrong, from the WEF. And this quote, not mine, said that because AI will eventually take away all the jobs and creativity too. Let's not forget that, the human element of creativity, he said, oh, we'll have to keep them busy with drugs and video games, and that's such a sad state. If you think about it, of what humans are going to come. I mean, that just broke
But
my
it's
heart.
happening now, Carol Ann. How
Yeah.
many times have you looked at this? Is all you're seeing.
Oh, it's god awful.
Things are going on around us, and we have already been given everything to take our attention away from the matters at hand. We're on social media, and our biggest problem is that person unfriended me. What? Right? I don't spend enough time on it because I just can't. Right? But I'll tell you, like, they're distractions. I think
Yeah.
for some people it's great, because if you don't have a lot of people, it's great. You make great online friends, and
Oh, absolutely.
pros and cons to everything, right? But
Absolutely.
I think that, with that being said, you have all of this technology, video games, the cell phones that give a computer in your hand 24/7,
That's
that's
right.
giving you radiation issues, that's giving, there's problems there. And even in the news, okay, I'm just gonna put this out there, right? Just on Maxwell Epstein, this whole thing's going on. And what were people focused on? The fact that Amber Heard crapped on Johnny Depp's pillow.
Yeah, that was
What?
terrible.
The whole trial, that's
Yeah.
what got the attention, because it's a distraction. Everything is a distraction,
That's so true.
right? So I think moving forward, that we have to realize that over time things are going on that people are oblivious to, because we've been given so many other things to pull us away from things that are going on.
Gosh, that's so true. You mentioned keeping a like a modicum of control over this. How do we do that when you've got billionaires gathering in Washington, D.C.,
Davos.
donating billions of dollars to AI, and we've all seen it on TV recently.
Mhm.
It seems like a train that left the station and there's no stopping. There's no stops. It's just going, and that's the reality we have to be faced with.
Mhm.
And I don't like the anti-human level of connecting us to machinery. You can look at a hip replacement as becoming transhuman or
Mhm.
bionic, right?
Mhm.
I mean, like you said, we love technology, we appreciate technology, but at what point,
Pacemaker.
right? At what point do you say no to the chip in the brain? At one point do you say, no, I don't want a chip in my hand? What control do you really have, Michelle? If they came to you and said, Michelle, and God forbid, there's a chip we need to put in your brain, you have X, Y, and Z wrong with it. And if you put this chip in your brain, you'll be cured. You're fixed.
Mm.
What decision would you make?
No.
Right.
No, because I believe that anything that can go in there, manipulate your body, can also be manipulated.
Absolutely.
Therefore, you're not behaving the way you should be. I'd come up and talk like this. It's like, bzz, That's it. Bye-bye to the outer realm and everything else. So, I think that, it'll get to a point where there won't be options, obviously, or you're just not going to, unless you're living on a commune somewhere, and then they'll just use drones to either
Yeah, you
corral
can't
you
even
back in.
grid. You
They've
can't go
thought
off
about it.
anymore. There's no off the grid. 10
Mm,
years ago, maybe, but nowadays you
mhm,
can be in a farm in the middle of Wyoming
mhm.
and they will find you.
Yeah,
Just-
it is because you have satellites.
yeah.
Satellites, everything, drone technology. The technology is already, as much as it's doing good, it's also working against us.
Yes.
So you're dealing with this stuff, and it's like, and it's only going to become more and more sophisticated, right? So I mean, my big, you say, how do we get away from this? Well, it's going to be very difficult because you have the powers that be, or it's just like, no way. I mean, breaking free of organized, I'm going to say it, organized religion. I'm not saying don't have faith. I'm not saying,
Right.
like, I don't know about you, or people who the faithful, feel like they have to go to a place with four walls every week to feel connected. I like the part about it where you can connect with your neighbors and your friends, and it can be a very uplifting place for me. Anything that's organized and the conditioning is just popped at you, week after week after week, becomes a real problem. But it is a sore spot for a lot of people. But I just feel that it's also a way of, again, just adding to conditioning that we don't need to necessarily do. We need to stop giving our power away, to authority, so to speak, because as children, we're taught to doubt ourselves for the most part. When you start, don't
Oh,
ever question authority. You do this or you do that, you're going to have a problem, and and our education system is built on an average. When you start your education, it's for being a worker bee. If you're a
yes.
very gifted, exceptional person, you might be able to pop over and skip a few grades, and then they test you and go, okay, you won't be the worker bee. But on an average, we're taught to. I mean, we're not even taught how to balance a checkbook, for God's sakes. Like,
Yeah.
you're taught to outdated math. I mean, to me, if you're going to go for a career where you specialize in something that needs crazy types of math, do it. But on an average, the average person doesn't do that.
No.
And I think breaking free also means questioning the dominant economic system.
I mean,
Period.
there
Question
will
everything.
absolutely. I mean, there will come a day, and maybe in probably in our lifetimes, where everyone will have a sentient robot. Well, maybe not sentient, I don't know, but a robot living in their home with them as an
Mhm,
assistant.
mhm,
But at some point, because now you can buy one for like what, 30, 40,000, Elon was selling them
mhm,
for, and they were washing dishes and, doing
mhm,
household chores, and it looks great on the surface, right? See, I think what they're doing is throwing us these metaphorical bones every now and then to
mhm.
try to get us in bed with AI, to try to make us think that it's,
They're
it's
helpful.
enemy, right? It's our
Okay,
friend,
this is a great thing. It's helpful. You have this babysitter, you have this,
right?
butler, you have this maid, you have, what happens if AI short circuits, sleeping at night, burns down the house, or just, what
Right.
happens if somebody just flips a switch on AI and makes it
Exactly.
hostile? Once that's in here, it's the same idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I could go down a whole other rabbit hole, and at this
Yeah.
point, it probably doesn't matter because I got to go private mode anyway. But there's just a lot of things going on. I'll tell you, without getting into anything about the pandemic.
Yeah.
I just want to talk was just about the towers that went up very, very quick. Towers went up quick, quick, quick. Like, people all over the world, people are like, what is going on? These things shot up under lockdown, which is why I personally think lockdown happened. These things went up like crazy. A man in the United States started doing research when mobs were happening in different pockets during the shutdown. all these mobs, like people just fighting and people getting shot and things were going on. He took it upon himself to research. He took every area that this happened in and proximity of towers and so
Oh,
on. When did they go up? And he started noticing a pattern. So I'm just using that. And that's just not my research. I'm just, this is an article that I read that I'm just sharing. And if that's the case, it's just like you're messing with the frequencies. Because by the way, you can find that the USA has many patents on different types of
oh
frequencies.
gosh, yeah.
It's everywhere. It's not hidden. You can go out and find this just online. I mean, I found all kinds of them for all kinds of different things,
Scary.
weather, frequencies, earthquake machines, all kinds of stuff. It's all out there.
Weapons.
You can find it all. So that being the case, what were they just like firing up, the
Gosh, that's
frequency up there? But that goes to show that's just towers. Right. So with that being said, you are at a place where you're kind of like, okay, so what if they amp that up a little bit?
right.
They can do it. I mean, I've had so many people say to me that they hear like the frequencies and their heads are louder. I've had them sometimes where they're quite painful, depending where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. And I'm going, yeah, I guess that is a thing. Because if you're very sensitive and you are, empathic, or you're very sensitive to energies, and mediums that really struggle with this thing, they hear these frequencies. And it's like, where did this come from? So
I agree totally. Yeah.
Well, frequencies can heal, but frequencies can do the opposite as well.
Well, yeah, it's got to be the right frequency, like with music. I mean, I got 5G about a year and a half ago, and it's been tripping me out having it in my house.
Mhm.
I had to move my router box, my 5G, because it was, when it was right near close to me, I felt sick. I felt nauseous. So I just try to move it further away. This is gospel truth stuff out there, folks.
It is. And I'll tell you what's very, I mean, again, which isn't the greatest for you. And I found that because I was working with a family that they were very affected. Their pets were affected by frequency. So you know how you can get those pucks for your internet that you just plug in?
right.
It's the cat started, fighting, to get into the cupboards.
I heard about animals getting sick from it.
The reptiles wouldn't even come up out of the water. So Wayne, who used to be a technician, basically asked a friend of his, because he's retired, asked a friend of his, he goes, what do you know about these things? And he goes, that they're terrible for kids and animals. They create a web. They create a web. So we don't use it. They're like hardwire in every chance you get, avoid those things. So if you're sensitive to energy, you are going to bloody buzz like crazy, and it will affect your health. It will affect your mindset, your frame of mind, your psyche, everything. Because that cat, by the way, died.
Oh no.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And this is happening everywhere. And this is another technician who installed these things who said to Wayne, he goes, don't. He goes, they're bad.
Well,
and that's just friend to friend.
Animals are so sensitive to everything. I mean, how many times, well, as a worker, you've seen animals react to different spirit energies, dogs, cats, birds, doesn't matter.
Yes.
They are so far more sensitive than we give them credit for.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask you real quick, Michelle. I did some research and was trying to find out what are, if any, the steps to breaking free from the matrix. And I asked ChatGPT, interestingly, and I just want to read a little punch list of what it said to do.
Okay.
It said, develop your self-awareness, practice mindfulness and introspection, recognize personal conditioning, which is interesting, and biases, expand your knowledge, read diverse perspectives and challenge assumptions, learn things like philosophy, history, and psychology, question social norms and beliefs, analyze motives behind establishment systems, which I thought was brilliant, and why and seek deeper truths. Practice critical thinking, and it goes on. But I think, nailed some of the steps to
Big
kind of
time.
right?
Ironically.
Exactly.
Ironically. So I think it goes back to like what I was saying, breaking free of organized religion, not religion, but organized religion, right? Holding on to your spirituality. You can hold on to the belief of all of it, but question it. Don't just take it lying down. Question everything. That's the point. Question everything. Stop giving your power away, which kind of leads into what you said as well. Question the economic system, the dominant economic system. Don't just take it lying down. No, question this. Like, for example, right now, why do we have all these unelected officials telling our elected officials what the heck to do? Like, I'm sorry, who the hell are you? And where did you come from?
Exactly.
Gates, for we one, just saying.
We didn't vote people.
No, exactly. Like, what is that about? Beware the media.
Yes.
Okay, because it is all programmed and funded with a narrative. You want to look at media, get listening to independent media. Go back to people who actually get back into who really want to be real reporters, not just talking heads. So, get away from that. And again, exactly what you said. Be mindful of what you put into your body. Mindful, not just here, but it's your health. Because if they're going to want to integrate, this and this all together with a machine, you need to really be careful because there are illnesses happening because of direct energy weapons going into, again, the crops, the water and your environment. I'm sorry, can we talk about that freaking fog a few weeks ago? There were particles in that. What was that? So, right? You're breathing that in. So develop the mindfulness, break free from your conditioning by being mindful. And this is going to allow you to respond consciously, spontaneously, as opposed to unconsciously out of habit, right? You can do meditation, do grounding, achieve a higher level of frequency and vibration because right? So you want to get into AI. That's against the whole thing. Reactive machines, limited memory. This is what they're trying to tell us up to 2 years ago when I was researching this. No. The oldest form has limited capacity. And yet you're saying, no, Elon's selling them for this much, and they're doing all kinds of things. Limited memory, theory of mind, self-aware. That's the final stage of an AI development, by the way, okay, which hypothetically exists. They become self-aware. And when that happens, right, then you're getting into the whole artificial superintelligence. I'm sorry, when does that happen? That happen, right? When does that happen? Because AI today, okay, they are basically saying that, oh no, there's a 50% chance of having them maybe within the next 45 years. No, how about not? How about it's already happening? Right? How about it's already happening? So
this is happening. Like 2 weeks, it's going to be different than it is today. It's this Willow. Google's developing Willow, which is this massive like computer system, this quantum computer that's smarter than any man that ever walked the planet.
Exactly. So but you see how the narrative is going? No, you don't need to worry about that right now because we're not at that level yet. This is TV stuff. No, it's not TV stuff. There's a lot of things going on right now. I think the powers that be have more involvement in AI that's happening within the entire narrative. There's stuff that's going on that we are not made privy to because we don't need to be, according to them.
No, of course not. You know what's interesting too? And I always think of the Georgia Guidestones because I think there's always been a continued plan for mass depopulation. That's just my belief. And if you look at something like the Georgia Guidestones, which are now no longer with us, they were sabotaged And the very first commandment in the Georgia Guidestones was to reduce the planetary population to 500,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
There are 8 billion plus people on the planet now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
I'm terrible at math, but what would that be? Like 98%?
That's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, you have
They they know we were upset about the Georgia Guidestones. They know we discovered, and they were in the media all the time. People
Mhm.
were talking about and they didn't like that. So what did they do? They blew them up.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right. Because I think when the people start to become aware and question and fight back, you take away the source that's giving them that empowerment.
Exactly.
You see, so we'll have to realize that it's so much bigger than all of us. We have no control over what goes on, but we do have control as to how we perceive it, how we react to it, and what we can do for ourselves to break away from it. And I truly believe that um, if you want to step away from that, then you need to put yourself and on that different playing field, which is through, again, spiritual people, unplug, awareness. I mean, you work on a whole other frequency when you're tuned into something different, your higher self. Tune into your higher self, and that is done through meditation and grounding and looking at the glass like it's half full, not half empty, or as Wayne would say, there is no glass. Okay. Right. So
I
it is there is no glass. I'm just like, oh, but
like
but it does come down to that. Is it creating and manifesting your own reality? Is that the way out? When you pass, okay, let's just say you pass away.
Mhm.
Here's the thing, ask yourself, and this is kind of a way of, I guess, of asking, are you ready to be unplugged?
Mm.
Because of all the condition that we spoke about. Reincarnation, that's a great thing. We're going to come back. We're going to do it again. Who am I, just thinking back at how amazing this is. The conditioning of fearing the darkness and go to the light, go to the light. That's where your loved ones are. Go to the light. How many times you hear that? The stories are all this, a lot of the stories are very, very similar with the NDEs. Not all of them. Some people have, maybe some people do get to step into the real realm, the real reality. But on an average, it's the same. I saw this tunnel, this beautiful light. I saw my family members coming. I saw this. I saw this. It's very, very organized, shall we say. Would you have the courage in yourself, or would you trust enough in yourself to make the right choice and not recycle back into the light?
Oh
Would
yeah.
you go the other way and say, heck with it? I'm a rebel anyway. Be like, yeah, I'm going the other way. I want to see what the hell's over there. And then if it's not something I like, I'll come back. Like kind of double edged there. Play both sides. But I think, in knowing what I know, I would try and go the other way to
I like
see.
that. That's very brave. And I think that they've always been programming us to this go to the light thing. Think about the movie Poltergeist. Now that came out what, in the 90s with Carol Ann, ironically.
Yeah, I know. Are your parents a fan? No. Yeah. Yeah, for
What
sure.
what's the one line everybody the minute somebody finds out my name, the next sentence is go to the light, Carol Ann, go to the light.
Thanks.
That movie programmed us into thinking, oh, you have to go to the light. They even said it in the movies, you have to go.
There's always a message behind these films. Sometimes you see symbols hidden in plain sight. Sometimes things are said, the conditioning continues, and it's the
Yes.
key words, the light, go to the light, go to the light, go to the light. It is truly conditioning. And
Yep.
I think until we're ready to break free from the conditioning, we will keep recycling back into here because we will have maybe conditioning, maybe we will have fear, genuine fear. First off, fear of going against the grain, fear of the authority that tells
Mm.
us, go here, go here. Faithful people who are very faithful and have the faith in their religions and their religious backgrounds, will not, the real hardcore will not usually deviate from the word. This is what you need to do. They won't deviate. You have God-fearing people who just won't. They believe everything is
Oh,
is there. And we're all speculating here with the Matrix, by the way. Like, all this is just speculation. These are just other people's perceptions that we're relaying, but we're having a discussion about it. And I find it interesting that it's a
oh,
whole other theory that could be a thing. But if that is the case, you know, if you keep up with the same cycle, then it just keeps spinning around and around and around. So is it worth trying to just deviate and see what holds? Like, who are these time travelers that are coming? They're not all like, are they have different dimensions for sure, but they just don't seem to like, are they people who escaped and just keep, now they can come back and go back and forth wherever you want. It's
that's
not
great.
just here.
Right.
I mean, again, just another
Oh,
another
I
thing.
love that the concept of that, because I think all these conversations help us to think critically,
Mhm,
to question.
mhm,
You got to keep asking the questions. That's what it's all about to me.
mhm.
Just that's why I love doing interviews, because I get to ask the questions.
Yes.
What better position is that? Like,
Yes.
when I was in school, I loved asking questions.
Yes.
It's what makes you think and discover,
Mhm.
a truth that works for you. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be the truth. I
Mhm.
don't think we'll ever know the truth until we pass, but it helps you discover a truth that you're comfortable, that sits well.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm. I agree, and if there is any control, um, out there that where we are able to manifest our own realities, then you do have to go out there and do that work to see
Yeah,
what resonates with you. What feels good to your essence, what feels good to your physical, what feels good to you mentally, what jives. What is that one thing that will put the whole package together for you
right.
enough to put you on the path where you need to be? Like,
Oh,
I
yeah,
know
yeah,
I look at the path going on right now, and I see people in all kinds of various cycles, some good, some really not so good,
right,
and
right.
some engineered and some that, not engineered. Like, I think when you look at something, question everything, and
Yeah.
then find that spot in the middle where you can feel comfortable in.
Let me ask you this. There's this big movement where people are going to Peru to ayahuasca camps.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
they're experimenting with this because
Mhm.
they want to break free from the matrix.
Mhm.
And through ayahuasca, which is a plant, it's
I
not
know.
really, it's
Yeah.
not, it's just a plant.
Mhm.
They're discovering how to break free from this matrix. And many, many of them have.
I know in Peru at one time when my son came up to me, he goes, "Okay, we have to go to Peru." He's a real enlightened guy, right? And he's an adult now, but we have to go to Peru and we're gonna go do ayahuasca. I'm like, "Why do I want to do that?" This is going back a while ago. He goes, "Well, you're going to take this plant," and it was a 2-week thing because they taught you. It was an education before you actually got to do the whole ceremony because it can mess you right up if you don't do it right. So I said, "Okay, so how does this work?" And he goes, "Well, you take this plant, you go into this, it's like a sweat lodge sort of thing, and then some people throw up all over themselves because they can't, they're so wasted." I'm like, I like having control over my head. I don't think
Right.
I'm gonna do well with throwing up all over myself. But anyway, the idea, of course, was because they were facing things that they within themselves as well, to be able to just step them into that other reality.
Right.
And but I have also, worked with people who have done it where they were not, I guess it wasn't done properly, and it messed them up, and they stayed messed up.
Oh,
So they
no.
they didn't pop over. They basically just came back like it was a half and half, which is why in Peru, the shaman there or the group of them educate you. This is what you can expect. This is what
Right.
this is going to do. This is probably what you're going to experience.
Right.
I know there's a big movement here now. They're talking about They're a lot more relaxed now about mushrooms. You know, you can
Yeah.
take mushrooms for the DMT factor of it, or you can get DMT pens. You can get DMT frequency on YouTube, by the way.
Right. I think it's called microdosing too. They're doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all about the DMT, and that's what brings you over. So it's definitely becoming something I think people are looking to have, whether they're psychic experiences or whether they're looking to move over, and they encounter many different beings along the way. But like anything, you have to somewhat have an awareness as to what you're communicating. Shadow work, exactly.
Shadow work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, I think it's a way, the people that I've spoken to that have done it clearly were transformed. And one person described it as like 20 years of therapy in 2 hours.
if you do
You-
it right, that's exactly how it should feel.
Right. But they had the shamans clear the space and they do
Yes.
this whole prayer ceremony. And
Yes.
it's like a whole thing. It's 2 weeks worth of work before you experience it. And you got to
Exactly.
do it right. You got to do it. I mean, I personally wouldn't because I'm a coward. I would be so afraid because I think I would be afraid to try ayahuasca. I'm so tempted to, but I think I'd be scared. I don't know.
So we're getting back into the fear again
Yeah,
of moving forward. I mean, it could be a fantastic experience,
yeah,
but the fear. So I ask you, when your time comes, knowing you the way you know you, would you unplug, so to speak? Would you go against the conditioning, go against the grain, and just say, no, I'm going for the dark path instead of the lighted tunnel?
yeah. I probably would. I got over my fear of death a while ago.
Oh yeah. No,
I'm
I
not.
don't.
I don't deal with that, thankfully.
Mm.
I'm so way past that. But I know for sure that I would never chip myself.
Mhm.
I don't want any part of that.
Mhm.
Um, the people that I've interviewed that have had profound NDEs
Mhm.
mostly have went into the light. That's
We're gonna have, Peter Penagor is gonna be on tonight, and he's what I call a fan favorite, and it's gonna be. It was a very profound experience that
what time
led
is
to.
that, Michelle?
Well, that'll be 9 p.m. Eastern, guys. It'll be like
Sure you
2 hours,
dial
2.5 hours, roughly. Yeah, and it was one that led him on a really inspirational journey, and it was life changing for him. So, I always try to ask people, when they're on the show, as to what their belief system is with this. And he goes, no, this was my experience. It was just life changing. But now that I've read this article that says, no, 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 because that's part of the conditioning. They know exactly what you're going to do, exactly what you're going to look for. They can get into here. They can, and these people, if they're still around, are most certainly going to come forward.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to watch that tonight. Absolutely. The thing that scares me too is, and we've all experienced it,
Mhm.
you know, on social media, I don't need to name platforms. It's
For
all
sure,
of them.
for sure. Yeah.
And you're thinking, I've had this happen and I don't think it's a coincidence.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about a red pair of shoes, just an example. And
Mhm.
I'm scrolling, and all of a sudden I see an ad for a red pair of shoes. So
sure.
the first time it happens, you're like, that was just a coincidence. But then when it happens repeatedly, it really makes you wonder, are they plugged in already? Are they already knowing what I'm thinking about?
Mhm.
Or,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
what in God's name is happening here? I mean, we all know through cookies on the internet, if you're shopping for a red pair of shoes, these social
Mhm.
media can track those and they know
Mhm.
exactly what you're looking for and the ads
Mhm.
populate. We all know that happens. But to
Mhm.
think stuff and then have it show up in an ad, that's scary.
But the
It's
technology is there apparently with Wi-Fi. They can even see through the technology. They can see right through you. That your television.
right.
Your television can hear and stare right back at you. So it's just like, what the heck is that? Right. So when you get that brand new television, even when you disable it, apparently it doesn't disable.
No, you're right. And I find myself dodging around
Mhm.
cameras and technology in my home because
Mhm.
I'm afraid that they're watching what I'm doing.
Exactly. But this is what I mean. Like there is so much, there are so much Jesse Rich's comment is exactly that. There's a good one, right? Patents for mind reading in LCD technology.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
they've been doing this for a really long time. So I don't know how much different will it be with AI. At least it's out there and it's out in the open. It's not just us speculating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What about when you're thinking about a red parrot? And that's
that's right.
exactly what I'm talking about. It's so
Mhm.
creepy to me.
It
I mean,
is.
I'm listening and then maybe I'm talking on the phone about a red pair of shoes, and
Mhm.
that's where I don't know. All I know is it creeps me out. That's why I'm dodging my
Mhm.
cameras. Like I'm one of those. After my husband passed away, I went security camera crazy, and they're
Mhm.
everywhere, outside, inside. And I
Yeah.
find myself just, oh, there's a camera there. Let me, I'm not going to
Mhm.
get undressed in front of this camera
Mhm.
because God knows somebody's peering through the other. I don't know. It gets you
Mhm.
paranoid. It
But
really does.
it does, and you know what was a giveaway for a lot of people back a few years ago is there was a picture of Mark Zuckerberg, and he was sitting with his computer monitor behind him, and he had a yellow sticky note over where the camera was,
I
and
saw that.
people kind of went, "Wait a
Yeah.
minute,
Yeah. That was a big,
right?" That's a really big thing.
yeah.
So this is something that has been going on for a long time. I mean, I don't even have my Siri, for example, not even connected. Not that she doesn't listen, but that's the whole idea is you think that you have
Exactly.
all these rights. You think all of this stuff. This is your perception of reality. You think you have it all, but you really don't.
Exactly.
But you show your diligence. I turned it off. I don't have it. I don't have my 5G turned on at all, and I am still on LTE, and I will go as long as I can with that.
Yeah.
I don't have, obviously we have the internet. It's hardwired in to the computer. I don't have it. I mean, obviously we use it, but I don't have this big tech thing that's. In fact, I had a very like an old Apple 802.1 that I bridged all over the house. And when they put in fiber optics, and
Yeah.
they changed that, oh, the thing wouldn't connect at all.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
So now it's like, I don't
They do
care. This whole
that on
house will be hardwired
purpose. Right.
before,
They do that on
really.
purpose. Absolutely.
Yeah, for
That,
sure.
yeah,
For sure.
awful,
So it's a
scary,
matter of just do your research. Do your
right?
research. There's a lot of people they're talking about. I had an incredible guest on my show. And Matt. Matt was from Cultivate Elevate, Matt Roadster from Cultivate Elevate. He's been on a couple of shows. And I would love to do an uncensored version with this guy but he has channels everywhere. Cultivate Elevate, and sells natural products that are mind blowing.
I'll write that down.
Yeah, Cultivate Elevate. You can find him on X. You can find him on, I don't even know YouTube anymore, until things change there. He's on Rumble. He's just on Instagram, and the stuff he puts out makes you go,
Oh, good Lord.
yeah, it's fascinating stuff. But do your research and show your due diligence,
Yeah,
because there are things you can do to the best of your ability. You can't beat technology forever, but
right.
if you could at least, take it and stretch it out as long as you can without it, because one day, it will work against you. And I think hints have been given all the way through, Terminator being one of them. As extreme as it was the future
Yeah.
fighting the machines.
Skylink was Terminator, right? Yeah.
They had a lot of that. Like, it's just, you have to realize a lot of messages are hidden in plain sight through
Oh,
different
yeah.
films, pretty much everywhere. So
Yeah.
always don't just look at what's in the forefront, look behind. And if something major happens, think about there's something even bigger happening behind the scenes. Always look to that. There's
False flag,
always something bigger.
like false flags you're talking about, like we're getting
Well,
fed.
it's like what we were talking about earlier, something breaks in the news, like when we got Diddy going on this and all this stuff's coming forward. All of a sudden, oh, how are we going to get bigger than that? I don't know. LA fires, the drones, the fog, that was all pretty big. But what does it do? It's a constant barrage of the crazy, and you start leaving behind things that are really important. then start looking at the reasons behind things.
We have a few minutes left. I wanted to ask you about this whole drone thing and these orbs. You got Chris Blotzo with these
Yeah.
orbs taking magnificent video. These orbs have been visiting him for decades now.
Mm-hmm.
Mind blowing. For folks that haven't checked it out, check out Chris Blotzo.
Yeah,
You
he's
can
great.
Instagram this.
Yeah.
He's written books. And I'm watching these orbs, and I'm like, he's saying they're angelic entities. You can
Mm-hmm.
summon them and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take? Do you think? Well, I know we're kind of bouncing from drones to orbs,
Mm-hmm.
but there was a correlation that people were seeing not only these drones but orbs. What's your take on that whole thing?
Well, I mean, the drones, you have,
Yeah.
3 weeks after disclosure, and now all
Right.
of a sudden these things are everywhere. And they're back, by the way. They're back. But you know how
Yes.
you don't hear about them as much as you did then? They are back. People are actually photographing them, and they're a map has been done up. They're like, here's where they're all being spotted. So they're definitely there. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
getting back into orbs, people see orbs around cryptids. People see
Right.
orbs with UFOs. People just see orbs in the spirit world. There's a lot of logical reasons for orbs, and then there's a lot of quantum stuff with orbs as well. So now break it down again. Are we looking at angelic beings? I guess many of the faithful, the paranormal people would think, yeah, they're very angelic. I do believe they are a race of their own. It's not just a religious thing. But if you are in the world of ufology, they might say, well, they're light beings.
Right.
They're very, very similar. But I think we could all agree to disagree. Chris is pretty reputable. I really like what the stuff that he does. So if he's having experiences, I have to think, no, he's not going to stake his reputation on rhetoric. He's going to, he's got something to back up his experiences. I mean, but not that everybody else is going to come out with something that doesn't make them credible. But I think in the world of AI, again, there's too much being done that is AI generated, and it's hard to know what to believe anymore, what you're actually looking at.
Exactly.
Blue beam.
Yep, you got Project Blue Beam.
There's a lot
That
of things
scares
coming.
me too. Oh my!
I know.
I think the drones were just man-made, like technology, or do you think they were interstellar? I don't know. What was your impression on them?
Oh boy. It's a 50-50 with a lot of people. There are some people that believe they're totally ET, but there's a lot of people that are thinking, no, those are ours. Those are ours. I mean, I think at one point, even the Pentagon at one point said, oh no, that's from out of this world, or maybe from China. Like they're all over the place. I tend to look at the timing. These things came up in around a time when a radiation lab in New Jersey. Why New Jersey, right? When the radiation lab got broken into, these things are all over the place. Then the crazy fog with particles coming out and people getting sick from it. They're inhaling it. I'm sorry, I have to look at, if you see something obvious, look behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And then they start showing up in different parts of the world. Well, for sure. I mean, I think maybe is it a test to see how we're going to react to them? Because one day they're going to be very much a part of our existence on a day-to-day.
Big test. Absolutely.
How will the people react to seeing these in the sky all the time? Because surveillance, AI, all kinds of things, weaponized. We really have to look at what's behind the scenes. Don't look at everything at face value. Look behind the scenes and see where you come up with what's in the middle.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Well, did you have anything else you wanted to cover in closing, Michelle, about the Matrix in general?
The Matrix in general, I think it's always going to be, something up until, I say always, I don't think it really will be for that much longer, the way things are going on in the world right now. I like to think that it's more along the lines, is it a simulation, or are we living a simulation, or are we just living in a prison planet type of situation? Because I've always believed that when the physical ended, you bury the physical, it's gone. We see this happening, but is this, again, reality in our own mind? Who knows? the essence seems to be the prize in everything. So, like anything, you hear stories of, oh, demonic energy is always about the essence. Everything comes back to the essence. And I think that's something that we need to explore a little bit more of. But a fascinating topic. I think it's always going to be one of those. When science is looking into it and they're thinking it's probable, we need to really explore that side of things as well. Sometimes the science does work.
Oh, I love that closing.
Yeah.
And I really like what you said about the essence. It comes down to the essence. I really appreciate that.
It's the prize.
Yes, a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
Pleasure.
I think 2 hours, it feels like 5 minutes. It's just, I could spend another 2 hours here talking to you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Much love to you always, Michelle.
Thank
I will talk
you.
to you here.
All right. Good night.
Right. Well, there we go. Thank you so much, everyone. That was really a riveting topic. And I hope that each and every one of you were able to take away something meaningful from that. And again, thank you so much for watching Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. Of course, we are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Thanks, everyone in the chat room. Love hearing from you guys. Love reading your comments. They mean so much to us when you do. Please give us a thumbs up and a like, whatever platform you're on. Subscribe to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. And of course, stay tuned to this network. They air the most amazing video interviews and topics that I've ever witnessed. I can't keep up with it all. I need like a week just to catch up on so many of these videos. So thank you again so much. My love goes out to each and every one of you. God bless and have a wonderful and blessed rest of the week.